Australia's soaring household debt. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I've got my stein of coffee and I thought we would have a look at this article about the soaring level of household debt in Australia. Now let's just jump over to a fantastic website, Trading Economics, hashtag not sponsored, and you can see our level of household debt, and I'll bring it up to the 25-year maximum, and this is as a percent of our gross domestic product. And well, in 96, what was it? About, would say, 55% roughly, with a really dodgy eyeball look. It's essentially doubled. Well, since, there we go, let's call that 98. It's doubled since 1998, from 60% of GDP to 120% of GDP. Okay, and household debt is going to affect consumer spending. There's only so much debt people can take on. There's only so much people are going to rush out there and borrow. And I honestly say the older you get, the more crap people buy, the more you realize stuff falls apart. Actually, as an architect, it's funny. When you design houses and people want storage space, and the cost of construction, can be $1,200 per square meter for a reasonable normal house, even up to $3,000 and above for quite extravagant houses. And if you just think about it, how much money they're spending to build these little places to store this crap they buy from IKEA or wherever, it's all falling apart. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So, household debt has Australians living in a house of cards. And this is by Alan Kohler and Liz Hobday from ABC. So let's have a look. When it comes to household debt, Australians are world record holders. We've got household debt to income on just a touch under 200%. And that, in my view, is a massive macro risk. Jared Minack, economist and principal at Minack Associates, told 730. Why are Australians so in debt? Because we went out and bought houses. Well, yeah, we went out and bought houses. And let's just have a look at this chart here. This is showing you foreign investment in our, as a proportion of building approvals. That black line was over 90%. I know I'm showing this all the time at the moment, guys, but remember, for some people, this will be the first time they get exposed to this information. First time. And it's important. It's important for people to know that these things will affect the rest of the economy. And we really are in... It feels like the government has they've got a conflict of interest. They want to drive up property prices because that increases their stamp duty and the revenue they get, the council rates, all of that goes up. It's all tied to land value and property value, and they skim a bit off every transaction. So it comes to the point where over 57% of the wealth of Australians is in housing, either in investment houses, superannuation, or in their homes. So any tumble in that is going to have flow-on effects through the rest of the economy. So not built houses went out, bought them, and pushed the prices up to among the most expensive in the world. It's literally a house of cards. Now, I'm going to pull up a quote here, everyone, and this is from Matt Berry. Now, he made a post on LinkedIn and I think Medium, called Australia Built on a House of Cards. It's a couple of years old now, but it's very important. I suggest you read it if you haven't. But this is a quote that just shocked me when I read this. In 2016, 67% of Australia's GDP growth came from the cities of Sydney and Melbourne, where both state and federal governments had done everything they can to fuel a runaway housing market. The small area from the city CBD to Macquarie Park is in the middle of an apartment building frenzy, alone contributing 24% to the country's entire GDP growth for 2016, according to SGS Economics and Planning. So a quarter of the growth in 2016 came from this area in Sydney. Now, if you followed any of the videos I've looked at in construction and just some of the issues with regards to quality of construction and destroyed consumer confidence, maybe that could be why it's overheated, or one of the contributing factors. We're putting all the wealth of the nation in houses, guys. And are houses actually productive over the long term? Well, our population isn't increasing enough. Here we go. He has his fingers crossed that we do not head into recession in the next 10 years. So he's hoping we won't head into recession in the next decade. The $1 million mortgage. Wow. Steve and Bev Jones live on Sydney's north side, less than 10 kilometres from downtown Sydney. They have 3 children, and while they do not regard themselves as well off, they're happy to admit they are comfortable. It is their mortgage that sets them apart. We have about $1 million mortgage, Miss Jones told 7:30. For that place? I mean, it's a nice house. Wow. I mean, we want our house to get to this stage. It's going to be a lot of years of hard work. $1 million? We went into it eyed wide open, knowing what we were taking. It's not great, but we wanted to own our home, so it is what it is. While Mr. Jones works full-time in finance, Miss Jones runs a consultancy part-time from home. Fantastic. When she had her youngest child, who is now 14 months old, she did not take any time off work. I worked all the way through my pregnancy, and then I worked every day thereafter, so I didn't take a break, she said. I think it would be very hard having to go back to a normal part-time or full-time job, and I think that would be difficult for our family to do that. Well, yeah, she's got a good point. This is similar to what Rachel and I did when we had our first kid. Rachel, we did a bit differently. We had an office, so we brought the kid to the office. There's photos of Mina crawling on the desks of our staff, and I always threatened the young lads, 20-something blokes, if you don't perform, you're on nappy changing duties. And yeah, Rachel said that was not appropriate. So, but I'm not going to lose the house over going back to work full-time or part-time or whatever. They have about 25 years left on their mortgage, but they are trying to pay it off faster than that. The decision they made has been all about spending time with their children as they grow up. They moved close to the city to reduce commuting times, and that has meant higher house prices and the mortgage that comes with it. I mean, that's a big issue. Commuting times are just insane. One of the advantages we have, particularly working from here, is even that when we had our office over in Yeronga, just an outer fringe suburb in Brisbane, not too far away, it's that commute in the morning still added up. There's still half an hour there, and then when you leave and you get caught in after everyone going home, rush hour, that adds up too. And some of these commutes you hear are just insane, just crazy. Let me know in the comment what your commutes are, guys, if you're having to put up with it. I think we still make a lot of choices. It's not like we can afford everything, Ms. Jones said. We still need to have choice, but I feel like we can have the things in life we want to have for our kids and for our family, and we have a way of funding that. So passing on the rate cuts. Well, this is the problem. How are they going to be in trouble if rates go much too higher? Is she going to have to give up some of the time with the kids? Maybe. The head of Australia's biggest bank, the Commonwealth Bank, accepts that Australia's household debt is high, but he is not too worried about it. We see an average loan-to-value ratio of about 50%, Mr. Matt Coleman told 7:30. That means that loans on average are half the estimated value of the property. From the bank's point of view, that means that if a borrower can't repay, the bank can still sell the house and recover its money. Well, okay, the bank is happy with that, but what about the drastic reductions in property prices we've seen in other parts of the country, and if that flows through? And we're seeing mortgages go in arrears, and that's increasing in Western Australia and Northern Territory. But the bank is fine. The bank won't lose money. So we don't have any concerns in the context of the overall health of that debt and the consumers being able to repay that, Mr. Corman said. If you look at serviceability of that debt, both at an individual level as well as the overall system, we're seeing more than 3/4 of our customers are well ahead of their repayments. So, I mean, that's a good point. But you've got to understand that even getting ahead on their repayments, everyone's getting ahead, everyone's a little worried. They're putting more and more and more off their mortgage, paying down their debt, which is the smart thing to do. But that's also less consumer spending in other parts of the economy. Remember, every time you go out and spend some money on on a Big Mac, Big Mac meal, let's say. You've said, okay, screw it, I'm taking a day off keto and I'm going to be super naughty. You go get a Big Mac, you're helping pay for the staff wages, the suppliers, the beef and all the other rubbish they put in there. And if you cut back on that, well, you can see all the talk of retail recession. I'm interested to see what's going to happen over Christmas. So obviously, that's contingent on interest rates remaining low, which I think under any scenario, interest rates are going to remain very low for the foreseeable future. What if the dollar plunges? There's the question I have. What if the Australian dollar plunges in value? Is the Reserve Bank going to raise interest rates to increase the dollar? Because that's going to have significant impact as well, guys. Because this is, hang on, I'm bringing that in the wrong way. This is from the Observatory of Economic Complexity, and we'll scroll down here and you can see all of the products that Australia is importing. If the dollar plunges, our purchasing power on the international stage is going to drop, and that will have cost of living implications. Even a lot of our food is imported. If the drought continues, that's going to have more consequences. Petrol is going up. I paid $1.70 a litre for petrol the other day. I was shocked. So I still have it hardwired in like 65 cents from when I was a kid. So some argue rates would be even lower if the banks passed on RBA interest rate cuts in full. The last 15 changes to the RBA cash rate have all been cuts, and it now sits at a record low 0.75%. Just think about that, the last 15 changes. But there's a growing gap between the average bank mortgage rate and the official cash rate. Since 2006, the difference between the standard variable rate offered by the major banks and the cash rate has increased from just under 2% to close to 4%. The government has accused the banks of profiteering and appointed the Competition and Consumer Commission to investigate. But Mr. Common insists the story is more complex, that it appears, and he is looking forward to using the ACCC inquiry to get the message out. He said the official cash rate was not the source of all the money the banks lend, but rather it accessed it from many different places, including deposits and overseas money markets. He also pointed out banks also have depositors, many of whom rely on income from term deposits, which are also affected by interest rate cuts. Where the cash rate's fallen by 75 basis points, term deposits have only come down by about 20 basis points, Mr. Common said. So for us, it's all about trying to balance various stakeholder groups. Better hope we don't have another recession. Well, we've got a generation that doesn't know what a recession is. It doesn't remember the last recession. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you haven't lived through the last recession here in Australia. It'd be interesting. Some of the oldies can fill you in what it's like. So with household debt already at record levels and already high house prices looking like they are about to head north again, what is the solution? Ultimately now the best way is a slow and steady decline in house prices relative to income, Mr. Minak said. I guess a benign scenario would be perhaps small little corrections, not unlike what we've had. I think we'd be pretty lucky to get away with that, but these house prices are now at such a high level. So you better have your fingers crossed and hope we don't have another recession for the next 10 years, because that's how long it's going to take. If we don't have a recession in the interim period, wow, housing is really at risk. Well, let's just have guys, look at building approvals, look at the construction sector, and don't worry, Florent, everyone's saying infrastructure. How many electricians and carpenters do you think you need on a road or a dam? Just saying. Just saying, guys. Because if you look at the infrastructure that the government's investing in, most of it's roads. Most of it is roads. So what do you think? What do you think? Are we going to see... we're not in an official recession yet. You're seeing people with $1 million mortgages. And Western Australia, Northern Territory, household arrears has jumped from 0.5% to over 1.5% in a couple of years. Where's that going to head when times really, really get tough? Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. If you like the channel and want to help me support producing more content, I have a Patreon and a Subscribe Star where you can make a small monthly donation. I also have Amazon and eBay affiliate links where I get a kickback every time you make a purchase. It doesn't cost you a cent. Finally, I have PayPal and other things if you want to donate. Thanks for your help, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye for now.